recording. So we're gonna probably have continue to have people. I'll continue clicking on to let people in as they sign on. But oops, probably should have someone run that part when I'm doing this. Hopefully this is the last virtual. Hopefully we're all going to be in person after this. That's our plan anyway.
That's a good plan. Let's hope we can follow through on that. Time to be in person at many things.
Yes. It's been 2 years. Okay, I know that we have like 40 people registered for this, which typically something happens where there's not all 40 are going to join, but let me click it. There's a few more and we'll get rolling. And then our speaker, Sam, he's going to sign on at about 11:40. So, because we've got some announcements and exciting things that we're going to tell everyone about. Okay, I think I got it where I can keep adding people on and start this, start our event. So welcome to our Fairfax Industrial Association February luncheon. This is obviously virtual. We're hoping this is the last virtual, but when we were planning this, we thought the way the COVID numbers were going, it would be better to do virtual. Obviously, they're all coming down. Hopefully that's going to continue. And then we will be back in person. So we are planning to be back in person for our March meeting. And that is on the website, on the calendar. And we have is it Doug Spangler? I think yeah, Doug Spangler. He's on the new mayor's, he's on a committee for government efficiency. And part of that is he's working on the task of property taxes in Wyandotte County, the mill levy being so high, which causes the property taxes to be so high. So he has a huge task to be working on, but he's got a lot of good information. And as you know, there are a lot of properties in Fairfax that saw huge increases that I'm going to be circling back with the Lieutenant Governor of Kansas on, that we had brought to his attention last year, like an example of 70% increase in a given year. So anyways, but you'll be hearing more of that. And this year is Fairfax's 100th year anniversary. So Fairfax is 100 years old this year. I'm going to be introducing a group that FIA has hired to put on some big celebrations for the 100th anniversary in just a minute. But so it's a big deal, and we hope to spread the news. And there's still a lot of people in the metro that don't know about Fairfax and don't know what all we do. We do quite a bit down here. And so we want to just continue to spread the good word and celebrate our 100th year. So everyone, instead of like trying to go around and have everyone introduce themselves, like it's too hard, like we do in person, go around the tables. But if you want to just go to the chat and introduce yourself and say who you are and who you're with, it's good for people to, you know, recognize the different companies represented and the different people here. And then if you need to connect with each other later, you can connect with each other later. Um, so I think that's all I have right now. John, Steve, is there something I'm forgetting? We're going to talk about some things. I'm going to let Susan talk about things coming up for our celebrations. But as far as we've got a lot of things in the work, but nothing to really talk about yet. We're going to be circling back on the fire station, trying to get that reopened in Fairfax. Cow Point Park, wanting to help. That's been falling apart, as you all know. It's in the Fairfax corner, the southeast corner of Fairfax, where we hold the festival. The tower signage, I think you guys have all seen the tower signage. I hope you like it. I love it, but you know, I'm a little biased since I was on the committee. So, but hopefully you saw it all when it was in red for the Chiefs. Unfortunately, we didn't get them to the playoffs or to the Super Bowl with that red, but it's a fun thing that we can do. And we can turn it to any color. So we'll be continuing to work on that and do things with that. We're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony on the tower signs in a few months. And we're going to continue to work on trying to get the gateway that goes up and over the entrance from Missouri on the US 169. It's like a $600,000 project, that sign. It would go, there'd be 2 towers that would go up and over the road with a big B25 coming right at you. So we do still want to try to get that if we can. So anyways, lots going on, but I am going to right now introduce you to a group that we have, they are now named Production Group, right? Susan, where are you? That is right? I see Kate smiling. So PG, I'm calling them PG, Production Group. Kate Leibsel, Kelly Ziegler, and Susan Kentrell. They're going to talk here in a minute, but they helped with the festival last year and volunteered their time. This year, because we are going into a big 100th anniversary, FIA has contracted with them to put on some special events, including the Fairfax Festival. Now it's going to be our 100-year anniversary party. I hope you made notes. It's October 6th. It's a Thursday, the 3:30 to 6:30. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Susan and let you talk.
Hey, can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Well, good morning. It's still morning to everyone. Kate and Kelly, are you on? Do you want to briefly introduce yourself, and then I'll kind of tell them what we're doing?
Kelly Ziegler with Numerical Tree. I'm part of the production group.
Hi, I'm Kate Livesley, and I am a freelance writer and event planner, and I'm also with the production group.
Well, great. And I'm Susan Cantrell. I'm with Sterling Sales Strategies, and we were thrilled to be working with a lot of you last year on last year's Fairfax Festival, and thrilled to be a part of the 100th celebration. I've met a lot of you, but I haven't met all of you, and I'll briefly tell you what we're going to do. So we were on board last year, and we helped with the partnership last year with KCK Chamber and Visit KCK. And Kelly really handled the social marketing aspect of it, and Kate handled the media and public relations. And I think a lot of you know that we got a lot of good press last year out of the B-25 bomber. We were on most of the TV stations. We had some great articles written about Fairfax. It was pretty exciting stuff. So we're thrilled to be back, and we did a survey at the end of the festival last year and got some great input from all the attendees and sponsors last year, and we're using a lot of that feedback to help us plan this year. We just came on board a couple of weeks ago, so we are working on the new logo. We hope to have the next meeting, the 100th anniversary logo, to be able to show you. And it won't be just the festival this year. We're hoping to do a lot of events to keep top of mind awareness for everyone in the community about the importance of the Fairfax area to not only Kansas City, Kansas, but to the entire Kansas City area and really raise the brand awareness of that. So last year we had a great event. We did information. What people told us in the survey was that they really wanted to help celebrate the 100th anniversary, and they wanted more of the history behind Fairfax. So that's what we're hoping to provide. We've worked on a partnership with the Wyandotte County Museum. And so the Wyandotte County Museum actually this year is going to do an exhibit of the 100th year anniversary of the Fairfax area from July through September leading up to the festival. And we could use all of your help because they have a lot of photographs and a few videos for the exhibition. But if you have any historical photos or videos or artifacts that would be of interest for that exhibit, we could really use your help. We're going to be doing some social media and emails soliciting contributions to that. And the exciting thing is that we're going to be out there for 3 months. We'll probably hold one of our luncheons out there while the exhibit's going on. But then we're going to have a mini Wyandotte County Museum with all the Fairfax artifacts at the festival itself in October. So the more cool photos and memories that we can gather, the more that's going to be of great interest for both the exhibit and what we can show at the Fairfax Festival. So ask your companies, maybe there's some things on the wall, maybe there's some things in the back office that are buried in Tupperware containers that would be really of interest to a lot of people from things that are 30, 40, 50 years old. We'd love to see those. So one of the other things of interest is just really getting the name out on the 100th anniversary. So we're going to expand some of the offerings. We want to produce a video that talks about the historical perspective of the Fairfax area. We hope to get either grant money and or sponsorships to be able to cover those videos. So Kate is actually working on writing some grants for us. And if you know of any grants that are possibilities out there, we could also please put them in the chat or email us, email Melissa, and then she can forward it on to us. But we found out about probably 3 or 4 in the last week that we didn't know about. One of them is specifically a Kansas grant that talks about video production on preserving history. So we're going to apply for that one. We know a lot of companies have foundations and trusts that we aren't aware of. So we're hoping to get more money from that so we could do a great video. Our purpose in that is to have a short video that we can use for social media and a longer video that we can actually show at our luncheon, and we can show maybe with partnerships, and maybe we're thinking it could be a great onboarding tool for all of the companies in Fairfax to show new employees when they come in so that they can really see the historical nature of the place that they're working and build that sense of community pride. So we'd like all the companies to incorporate using that video in the future too, so they can see what kind of great companies came out of Fairfax. We're also looking at T-shirt sales commemorating the 100th anniversary and having the ability to be able to purchase those for companies. So for their employees, everyone could be honoring the 100th anniversary. And we're talking about a lot of partnerships with community partners, not only the Wyandotte County Museum, but Visit KCK again. I had a call yesterday or 2 days ago with Sporting KC, and we're talking about possibly doing a Fairfax night at Sporting KC, possibly at the Monarchs that's more family oriented, so that we're really getting the word out about Fairfax all throughout the summer leading up to the Fairfax Festival. We also want to have, we've always had raffle prizes in the past, and last year, as you know, we had raffle prizes for the B-25 bomber, which was really cool, and we sold tickets for that, and they were, I think, 400, something like that a piece, and that was a great interest for the raffle. This year, we would love to get 100 raffle prizes for the 100th anniversary. And it's a great opportunity. We need some really cool prizes for people to bid on. So if you or your company or you know of any great community prizes that you have access to, we'd also love to know about those.
What's that? Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Is somebody wanted to talk or, okay. So those are some of the things we got going. Kate, Kelly, did I miss anything that we should talk about?
No, I think you hit everything.
Yep, covered
Okay,
it all.
so we're going to be contacting a lot of people in the next couple of months, but we can certainly use your help, your ideas, your contributions. If you think there's somebody that we should talk to, either for sponsorship or grant opportunities or donations, we'd love to get your help and make this a memorable year for the Fairfax area and have everyone in the Kansas City community know how important it is for the community. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Susan. So as you saw me, and I finally muted, as Susan was saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, my cabinet right behind me. I have some Fairfax historical memorabilia. I don't know if you guys remember, but this is a big one-page ad that FIA took out that I actually created in 2000, which is 22 years ago, which really is crazy even to think about. But this was a lot of the Fairfax businesses sponsored this ad. It was for the Kansas City 150th anniversary. And so of course, I'll get this laminated and share it. But there's a timeline from 1922 on that I somehow, I don't know where I got it all, but like the history of Fairfax. So there's just lots of cool things. And there was a gentleman in Lincoln, Nebraska that reached out to me a couple of years ago, and he cataloged really nicely and sent to me photos and different things of some of the board back in the 1950s. I don't know if you can see that. I know there's a glare, but there's lots of cool stuff. And so hopefully people will dig through everything they have. And this is a great way to collect our history and put it all in one spot and keep it so we have it. So there was something else I was gonna say. Gosh, what was it? Anyways, so dig through your stuff and see what you can find and send it to me. I'll make sure it gets to the right hands. Andy, Andy Daly, I saw that you commented about talking to the UP. We've already talked to the Union Pacific Railroad. We do know that they founded the Fairfax district. We just talked to them yesterday. So we're having lots of good discussions and hopefully we'll be talking with all of you soon. So with that, I am going to turn this over to John Latenzer, who's on our board, was president, owns Snuff Packaging. He's like my secret weapon not secret weapon, but he's the one that finds a lot of great speakers for us and makes me look good like I found him, but he's the one that really finds all the great speakers and has a great one today. And John, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our speaker.
Thanks, Melissa, and welcome everybody to the meeting. I had this idea when I was thinking about speakers for this meeting that we really want to talk to Sam Mellinger. He's been a longtime columnist for the Kansas City Star. I've always enjoyed his articles. He had recently changed and has taken the position, as most all of you know, as the vice president of communication for the Royals. So I reached out to our contact for season ticket to the Royals and said, can you help connect me to Sam Mellinger? And the next thing you know, Sam's in touch with us. He said, I'm grateful, would love to be talking to your group. I appreciate the chance. And so we were off to an immediate good start, and Sam was really helpful and really gracious to agree to do it. But he said, one caution, I would have to do it virtually. I'll be down at the spring training site in Arizona, and it would have to be virtual. And I said, terrific. Unfortunately, we're going to have to go back to virtual for this meeting. So everything fell into place. And Sam, thanks again for agreeing to do it. I think everyone read the brief bio. Sam Mellinger started in about 2000, the year 2000, covering high school sports for the Kansas City Star. Then he moved in 2000 2010, I believe, to covering baseball, and then moved to writing the column. He was the lead sports columnist for the Kansas City Star until his most recent change. I have to tell one quick little story about the arc of Sam's career. And in 2001, my oldest daughter is a doubles partner in the tennis team at Bishop Miege High School. She and her best friend are doubles partners. And in the regional tournament, they have to play against their other best friends from Miege High School. Only one team can advance to the state tournament. At that regional tennis tournament, there was a young Cub reporter courtside who covered it, wrote a really neat human interest story the next day. That Cub reporter was Sam Mellinger. My wife reminded me when I told her who our speaker was today. She had a terrific visit with Sam, and he wrote a terrific article the next day. But Sam went from covering high school sports at that point, stayed with the Kansas City Star, progressed to the lead columnist, which, as we know, the Kansas City Stars had tremendous columnists over the year. You can think, I'm old enough to remember Joe McGuff. We all remember Joe Posnanski, and then Sam followed in that tradition. He's taken a very interesting turn in his career. Now he's on the other side of the desk, so to speak, and he is the chief spokesman for the Kansas City Royals. So Sam mentioned that with the current state of negotiations between Major League Baseball and the Owners Association, there might be a couple things he's limited in what he can discuss this morning. So when we do go to Q&A, if Sam says, yeah, I can't quite go there, then that's realize there's a couple limitations. So we're really grateful for Sam being here. Sam, I think at this point, Andy Reid would say, time's yours.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Can you guys hear me okay? Are we all connected? Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys reaching out and this opportunity to talk a little bit. I've done a few of these before in my old job. This is the first one in this job, but I always think these things work a lot better when there's questions, like when we're talking about what you want to talk about instead of me rambling on. I just got down here a couple days ago to spring training. It's a little bit weird for a lot of reasons. Mostly, the other side of the fence thing is true, just personally, but mostly just that there's no big leaguers here, so kind of the job I was hired to do, I can't really do yet. So I'm kind of preparing as best I can, in some admittedly very good weather. But although I know in Kansas City, it's pretty nice this week too. So I don't have a big advantage there. But yeah, anyway, like John said, I can't, there's certain lockout stuff that I can't really talk about, but I am hopeful. I will tell you this, I think that, some of the stuff that's being written and said, I don't think any of it's inaccurate, but I think that in general, there's a more of a sort of at the edge of the cliff tone than I believe is actually reality, if that makes sense. I'm still confident that we'll get going and that we won't miss games, regular season games anyway. So that's probably about all I can say about the lockout. But anything else, I would love to talk and see what you guys want to talk about.
Sam, can you talk a little bit about the state of sports writing and the state of media in general, especially now that you're on the other side, even though you've only been on the other side for a couple of months. But yesterday, the announcement that several magazines, Entertainment Weekly, InStyle, and a bunch in their family aren't going to print actual copies anymore. They're just going to go all digital. And as we know, the Star gets smaller and smaller all the time. So can you just kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a topic I could probably talk about for hours. So I'll try to be as succinct as possible, and please feel free to ask a follow-up if I don't hit exactly what you're wondering about, but um, it's there's no easy answer, no clean answer. I loved my old job, and one of the things that I didn't like about taking this new job was the idea that some people might think that I was trying to just scramble away from journalism, or pull the old escape hatch or whatever from sports writing. And that wasn't the case at all. I really enjoyed it. I really did. I had a great job, and I wasn't looking to leave. This was just an opportunity that presented itself with, a phone call that I got from the Royals, seeing if I would be interested. And, after I realized that they weren't joking, I started to think about it more, and it was just an opportunity that I had to take. But, as far as like sports writing specifically, it's not the same as it was, 20 years ago when I first got into it, but it's not going to be the same in 20 years. And when I got into it, it wasn't the same as it was, 20 years before. The world changes, and we have to evolve with it. I don't know at what point I started to think and say this, but I still believe it now, that I could live to be 150 years old and my obituary will be in the Kansas City Star. I really believe that. I don't think it'll be printed on paper, but I think it'll be in the Star. And I started to think like, I don't know, maybe around 2010 or so, somewhere around there. Like I kind of no longer felt like I wrote for the print edition. I felt like I wrote for kansascity.com. And I know that the paper, like you said, Kate, like it's getting smaller and smaller. But there's so much information on the website and through the app. And that was a frustration I had, is that people judged the Star by the print edition and not through what I felt like I was working for and what I thought was a better product, honestly, than any of the last 10 years or so of the print edition, just because it's updated constantly and there's room for more information. It's a weird way to make a living, sports writing, and it always was, but it's especially weird now with some of the pressures. And I'll just be as open as I can be. There's some frustrations with deadlines and but particularly access. One of the reasons that this new job appealed to me is that the Royals, and I felt this in my old job. I know I'm like literally paid to say certain things about the Royals now, but I do appreciate that I had a job where I was paid to say whatever I wanted, whatever I felt in my heart. And I felt this way then too, is that the Royals are very open. They want to talk to fans through the media and be transparent. And I think it's benefited them a lot. I think selfishly they're not doing it for selfish reasons, but selfishly, I think it's helped Dayton Moore, just full transparency, get through some, hard times, just because people understand where he's coming from. And sometimes that doesn't exist. Now the Chiefs have the quarterback, right, that solves a lot of problems. So it's a little bit different situation there now. But I think without that transparency, fans can get bad information, or just, when there's a gap of information, people fill it in themselves. And sometimes it's inaccurate. So I believe in that. But unfortunately, I think the Royals are more of the exception in that way than they used to be. And that makes it hard for not just writers, but, broadcasters and everything. And, then there sometimes I think there's a perception that some reporters are just sort of gotcha and, just sort of out for clicks and all that. And there is that does exist. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I think for the most part, people get into that field because they love sports and they love sports fans, and they want to communicate and they want to help. And I think that the more that teams and leagues can, sort of facilitate that instead of limit it, I think the better off. But I don't know if I'm answering your question. I'm probably rambling a little bit. Is there something specific that you were wanting to know about, Kate?
No, I was just trying to get you kicked off. I should have told you in full transparency that Susan and I are both Star refugees. So
Refugees, I like that.
yeah, so I'm a recovering journalist.
Sure.
And so I was trying to help you out, get you kicked off.
Yeah, no, I mean, I still believe as much as I ever did in journalism, and particularly local journalism, which I think is a completely different thing than cable news, right? And a lot of network news. I believe in local journalism in a deep and personal way, and that certainly didn't change when I left the business, when I left the Star. I think it's important to not just Kansas City, but for every city in the country that journalism is strong and honest and all those things. And I hope that continues, long after my kids are gone. You know what I mean? Like I just hope that goes on. It's certainly not the same. There's challenges. I get all that, but I hope that I hope that it can continue in a strong way.
Sam, a quick question. You've covered so many things over the years. What are a couple of the more memorable at any level, at the major league level, NFL level, or maybe high school? Or you've certainly had some highlights to cover, and there's been some awfully disappointing times to cover. What are some that come to mind for you?
Yeah. So this is another one that's going to sound like, I'm the guy like wearing the logo now, but even in my old job, I used to say that, I could have done that job for 100 years and never had more fun professionally than I did in 2014 and 15. It just, that to me, I think a lot of us, I would include me here, I think a lot of us in Kansas City just assumed that would never happen in Kansas City, that it just, that the Royals would be what the Royals had been. And, those of us that love baseball would continue to watch and follow. But for the most part, all the playoffs would always happen in other cities. And there was also a lot of positive energy in and around Kansas City that kind of had nothing to do with the Royals, but sort of worked together. And I just think about, that's around the time that, like, this is a weird example, but like, it's kind of around the time that Charlie Hustle had all the KC Hart t-shirts, and everybody's wearing that. And there was just a lot of civic pride that I think started independent of the Royals, but certainly locked arms and went forward in a major way. And it just, for those of us that love Kansas City and care about it and like to see the best of Kansas City spread around the country, that was just a really amazing time that I think kind of transcended baseball. And but just the baseball stuff, I mean, I just remember I was, that old job was a lot of fun, and some of the things I got to do was like cover playoff World Series games, for instance, at Fenway Park, which is 1,000 years old and tiny and not built in the same way that these concrete behemoth stadiums are. And you could feel that place shake at certain moments. And I was like, God, that is unbelievable. There's certain college football stadiums, Texas A&M, for instance, where that can happen. But you look at Kauffman Stadium and you look at how just broad and strong concrete foundation, all that stuff. And you just never think that would happen there, but it did. And the first time I remember feeling it was at the wild card game. And I mentioned that to somebody with the Royals after the game. And they said, what's crazy is James Shields, when he walked out to the mound to throw the first pitch, said that he could feel the ground shaking under the field, like the literal baseball field was shaking under his feet. And I think that was just something that it was just almost like an overwhelming pride that ran throughout Kansas City. So that's number one. And then there's a gap, but there's been a lot. I mean, I've been so lucky. I mean, Super Bowls, the London Olympics in 2012, Allen Fieldhouse, when KU gets on one of those runs, it's just, there's a wave of noise and energy that, if you hate KU, I get it, but it's an amazing thing that happens in those moments. You know, K-State basketball, when Frank Martin had that place going, was a ton of fun. And then, you know, some of my best memories are just on the high school level. I mean, it's just, you know, the crowds aren't as big, obviously, but the passion is. And in a lot of ways, the passion's even bigger at that level. And you get to know people in a different way. And, you know, those games matter. And, you know, I still have a lot of friends from those days, you know, that I keep in touch with, you know, Kelly Donahoe and, you know, Tony Severino and Rick Zeke and a lot of, you know, a lot of those coaches I think are just jewels of the community. And I know that there's high school coaches like that in cities across the country that kind of make their cities and their sports better. And it was really cool to be able to get to see that and get to know that as well.
So follow up just a little bit more, Sam, on that. And
Yeah.
it just made me think, all the different venues you've been in, people talk about the atmosphere when they come into Arrowhead and the atmosphere when they come into Royal Stadium. But more than most of us, you've been in all those other venues. So tell us a little bit about that contrast. And I realize you'd see it or experience it from the press box, which is certainly different, but you get a
Yeah.
sense. What are a couple impressions of other cities around the country?
Yeah. There's a lot of great places all over. There's some that feel real stale. You know, I'm thinking like in the NFL, there's not that much difference between the stadium like in Washington and Philadelphia and Tennessee. And, you know, there's a lot that are just kind of San Francisco's like that. But sometimes, I mean, one of the coolest places that you can ever see a baseball game is Pittsburgh. PNC Park is just unbelievable. It is so cool. If you go there, I promise you won't regret it. Whatever they call the stadium where the San Francisco Giants play, used to be AT&T Park, but I think it's changed names a time or two since then. It's just, you're almost cheating though, right? Building it right on the bay like that. But it's you feel different there. Wrigley Field, Fenway Park. I really like Target Field in Minnesota. I think Detroit is underrated as a baseball stadium. I haven't been to Seattle. I think that looks really cool. You know, I love Green Bay. You know, just thinking about the NFL, SoFi in LA is one, maybe the coolest stadium I've ever been in. It's just distractingly cool. It is unbelievable. You know, there's a lot of great college places too. I mentioned Allen Fieldhouse and you know, Bramlage when it really gets hot. Texas A&M is a great place for football. Nebraska. You know, there's so many. Wyandotte High School, the gym there. If you see, like, if you get the right basketball game, there's not a cool. The Fieldhouse, the IL Fieldhouse, is another one like that. North Kansas City, the football stadium is unbelievable. That's I could go on and on and on. I've got a spot, you can probably tell, for, you know, specific stadiums and the uniqueness that each one has. And one of the reasons that, you know, there's a million, but one of the things that I've always liked about baseball is that, you know, especially after that wave, right, when Camden kind of started it off of, you know, baseball stadiums kind of being integrated and being unique to their place, their city. And I think that is such a cool part of sports, and specifically baseball. So you can tell there's a bunch, and I'm not trying to just name everybody like I'm some like award winner, not trying to forget anybody that helped them, right? But there's so many. And that's one of the best parts about sports, is that each place is a little bit different.
So, Sam, with all of your talk about stadium, this segues right into what do you think about the Royals moving to downtown?
Yeah, another thing that I can't say everything about, but I mean, I would tell you that, you know, what John said last September, John Sherman, chairman and CEO, what he said last September is still true. And I've learned a lot. I feel like I felt in that old job, I felt like I knew a decent amount about it. talk to John in that old job, which is kind of weird now, about the stadium and other people around town. But I've learned a lot more. I'll tell you that. And we're working through a lot of things. There's some questions that we need to find answers for before we sort of say more publicly. And so that's kind of the process that we're in right now. Nothing's going to happen that Kansas City doesn't want to happen. But gosh, like from what I know, I'm really excited about it. I would tell you that. I think it's a really cool project. There's a lot of, I don't know how you say it, a lot of hoops to jump through, right? Like it's complicated. There's a lot of balls in the air. But from the stuff I know, it's a really cool project. And so, I mean, the Royals, I think, are going to be in a great spot either way, because this isn't like, San Diego, for instance. I think Petco, if they still call it that, the stadium where the Padres play, is gorgeous. It's great. It's awesome. But that was a little bit different project because there wasn't a Padres fan on the planet that wanted to stay at Qualcomm. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't, so, that was a little bit different situation. I mean, the Royals are in a spot where, gosh, if we stay at Kauffman Stadium, I think we all like Kauffman Stadium. It's a good place to play. But I think that there's some stuff that can happen downtown that just isn't possible at Kauffman, just, and specifically for Kansas City. Like I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, John has lived in Kansas City for 40 some years. And, he's part of Kansas City in a way that, not a lot of sports owners are a part of the city of the team that they own. I think that's going to come through, I think, when more information comes out about the project.
Well, I have a question, Sam.
Yeah.
And that would be forgetting the lockout for
Please, let's forget about the lockout.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where the Royals have no hope of competing this year very well, and also on the upper end of the scale where they have a very good chance of competing this year, where do you think the Royals will fall? And then why do you think that?
Yeah. I don't know how to put a number on it. Somewhere in the middle, just to be, whatever the number is, it's higher than it would have been if we had this conversation a year ago, and probably not as high as it'll be if we have this conversation a year from now. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of the path that the team is on. I think that, if you just look, it's not if you just look at the ages, I don't know if this is something I'm supposed to say in this job, but it's not a super young team if you just look at the ages of the roster. But some of the guys, especially on the pitching side, are at the ages where you're kind of expecting, improvement, guys getting used to the big leagues. Obviously the Royals had a few pitchers that killed it in the minor leagues and then came up and it was a whole different deal. But you would expect those guys to be a little bit more comfortable and sort of close that gap a little bit. I mean, the Royals have the consensus minor league player of the year, that's hopefully going to be in the big leagues, if not opening day, then, hopefully sometime in the 2022 season. And there's more guys behind him, that are really, the MJ Melendez hit more home runs than anybody else in baseball. And Nick Prado wasn't far behind. And, Vinny Pasquantino's coming and Will Klein is coming. And, John Heasley came up for a little bit last season. But, there's a lot of guys that are on the rise. I mean, I think I get some of the rankings confused, but, a few of those farm system rankings have come out. And Baseball America had, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Baseball America had the Royals 3rd and MLB Pipeline had them 5th. I might be flipping those around, but it's the farm system's loaded. And those guys are going to come up soon. The farm system was loaded in 2010, 11, 12. And we know what happened after that. So look, there was, 16 there was the foul ball in Chicago that took out 2 All-Stars. And then, 17 probably should have been better. And then 18, 19 were pretty bad. But I think I do believe if you just look at the talent that's on the roster and the talent in the minor leagues, the Royals are in a better spot than they've been in a few years for sure.
Sam, this is Susan Cantrell. I have 2 questions. One is, do you think spring training is your guts that it'll start on time? And 2, where do you think Mondesi is going to play, at third or in the outfield this year?
Yeah, I wish I had a different answer for you, but it's hard. The big leaguers are supposed to report on the 16th, which is that Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I swear, once you get to Arizona, like every day feels the same. But I think that's Wednesday. It's hard to, just being honest, it's hard to see that happening. I would bet the over on that it'll be later than that. That doesn't necessarily mean that we would lose spring training games. I think that just being flat, as honest as anybody could be, I think people would probably tell you that spring training's too long anyway. And so if we lose a week, I don't think the players are going to be too sad about losing a week of spring training. But what was your other question about whether we would lose like regular season games?
Now is whether you think Mondesi will be at third, or they're going to try him in the outfield and keep Lopez at short and Witt at second. I mean, what's your projection?
Yeah, there's a lot of different. Baseball is so much different now than it was 5 or 10 years ago, where it's much less about this guy is a third baseman or this guy is a center field is different. Some guys are just center fielders, but there's a lot more positional versatility, I think, than there ever has been before. And the Royals have more than most in that. I think Bobby Witt Jr. can play, really anything except for catcher. And Nicky Lopez, he was terrific at short last year, and he's probably more of a second baseman. I think the coaches would tell you that. Whit Merrifield, that's always been his strength, is that he can play so many positions. Hunter Dozier, there's a lot of guys that can move around. And Mondesi's like that as well. I was always curious in my old job if Bobby Witt Jr. or Mondesi could play center field, if that would be really good. Then they obviously signed Michael A. Taylor to an extension to play center field, which he did. He won the Gold Glove, right? It's hard to do better than that. I would wonder if, look, he's not going to play 162 games, but I would wonder if Mondesi won't play. I don't know about the majority, but the more games at shortstop than he would at any other position, knowing that he can move around third, even DH, keep his legs strong. And so I'm not so sure that the opening day lineup wouldn't be Witt Jr., Mondesi, Lopez, and then a first baseman, and then Whit Merrifield in right field. I'm not saying that'll happen, but I don't know. That might be what I would tell you. Hopefully everybody's healthy, but I would be curious if that's how it goes.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Sam, can I ask you about something you've written about many times?
Of course.
The accessibility of the product of Major League Baseball, particularly for those of us who have cut the cord. I have YouTube TV. I couldn't see any Royals games last year. What's happening on that front?
Yeah. The frustration that you feel is felt inside the Royals organization. I can tell you that. It's a bad situation. We went through the same thing that you're going through now. And we had YouTube. And I thought it was a good product, YouTube TV, and we were happy with it. But then it was before last season, right? That you could, but that last season was the first one where you couldn't get Royals games on YouTube, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And you know, we just made the decision. And Katie, my wife, was not happy with it. She hates every time we change TV providers because she's like, I gotta learn, you know. But I was just like, I can't, we're gonna have the Royals on in my house. Like that's just, you know, that's how it's gonna be. And if we got so we made the switch, and we've got it's called D Stream now. And it's a perfectly, it's a as good a product as it, you know, there's nothing, it's great. I think we might pay like $10 more a month. I'm actually not sure about that. But that was, I just needed to do that. And I feel like I'm too old to like get a legal cable, you know, because I know you could do that, like the VPN and stuff. I can't do that. So we made that decision, but I know that Major League Baseball, for Major League Baseball to grow and continue to grow, it doesn't need me. Like they've got me. You know, they need other people. And I would just tell you, I'm frustrated about that. I would want it to be in 99% of the households like it was when it was, you know, everybody had cable. They're working on it. It's not going to be ready. There's a direct to consumer option is the jargon term, right? And they're working on that. It's barring a miracle, I would tell you that it's not going to be ready for this upcoming season. It may be ready in the middle of the season, and I would bet that it would be ready by the 23 season. But even that, you know, maybe I'm saying too much, but I see even that as a very imperfect solution. I just think that the game should be available. I think it's great advertising for baseball, and I think that's how we grow. So I hope that's where we're moving. It's just we're in this gap, right? Like I think that 10 years ago everybody got the games, and I think 10 years from now everybody's going to have the games. And it's just this gap where people that were making a lot of money on the old model are still in control, and there's people that are making money on the new model that are going to gain control. And it's just sort of how we manage that gap. But gosh, I just, you know, I think it's really important for baseball. You know, just think about kids. The reason I love baseball is I played it as a kid, and it was always on in our house. So the games weren't on TV as much as they are now, but my dad always had it on the radio and that kind of thing. And I want that to be, I know times are different, but I want that to be as true as possible now for, you know, I've got kids in their you know, second grade and kindergarten. I want that to be their experience as well.
Sam, I don't need Major League Baseball to change any rules in order to entertain me. I like it the way it is. Mm-hmm. But you just mentioned about the topic of growing the game, increasing the fan base. Do you see that there could be some rule changes, some other things that Major League Baseball could do to make it more entertaining for more people? I'm thinking of the entertainment groups, the Savannah Bananas, for example.
Like promotion stuff?
Well, I'm not recommending this, but if a fan catches a foul ball, the batter's out.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah. I'd imagine that you'd be safer hitting foul balls in the later innings after fans have, you know, been drinking a little bit more. They're probably less likely to catch a foul ball on their own. Yeah, I had heard that. I've forgotten about that you're out. That's funny. As you know, in the minor leagues, they've been tested new rules, you know, everything from bigger bases, you know, limiting the times that pitchers can throw over to first when a guy's on first, just to generate more action, you know, more stolen base attempts, things like that. There's always, Major League Baseball doesn't talk about this out loud really, but you know, there's been some reports about how the ball has changed in a way that, you know, makes it more balls in play. I struggle with this honestly because this isn't a clean analogy, but it's in my head, so I'm going to say it out loud. Is there was a time where MLS went real gimmicky, and it was shootouts, and just they were trying to sort of Americanize soccer in a way and their philosophy then was, we've got hardcore soccer fans, and if we change the game in these 2, 3, 4 ways, then we can attract more, quote unquote, like American sports fans. And it was a disaster. It didn't work. And then they went sort of all in on, let's celebrate soccer. And, everything from like, the club names are like FC Toronto and, all that. And the game is played pretty much exactly, we can make our jokes about the refereeing in MLS, but, it's played pretty much like, when you turn on NBC and watch a Premier League game. So I struggle, I want baseball to look like baseball. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be a gimmick thing. But I also recognize that we can't just have these games go from how they used to be 2 hours and 50 minutes or whatever to 3 hours and 50 minutes. Like that can't be a thing that happens. So I hope that there's a middle ground in there somewhere, and they can use things like changing the ball, subtle things like, limitations on defensive shifts. There's a million different approaches that you can take, but I also think that part of it, teams pay for what's successful, not for what makes for an attractive product. You know what I mean? So there's a difference. There's some of the stuff that makes the game, less appealing just aesthetically, is done because it's a way to win games. And I don't know how you solve that, because teams should be incentivized to win, right? And they should, they want a good product. They want people to enjoy it, but they want to win games. And so I don't know how to reconcile that. I don't have a magic solution on that, but I do think that there's reasonable steps that can be made to quicken the pace, more action, fewer strikeouts. I think there's some reasonable subtle steps that can be taken to do that.
Sam, this is Susan again. Keith's question made me remind, the thing that drives me nuts about baseball is that they won't show controversial plays like college basketball and football to get the fans really into it.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why baseball is so resistant to showing those close plays, or when it's going against the umpires or whatever, like every other sport does, to really get the fans rocking and get the atmosphere up.
Yeah. My understanding is that's a union issue, the umpires union, that that's something that they've negotiated. And I'm with you, Susan. I think that they're professionals, just like everybody. Somebody strikes out, that's shown on the scoreboard, right? So I think you see more of that now. You see more of those close plays just because, somebody calls for a review, they always show it on the board. And, you'll see fans, bad call, it's going to get overturned. You see that. But I also think about it in terms of, that if there's a missed call, that the people at home watching can see it. TV always shows the replays. And so I always approach it as we should incentivize people to be.
It seems like a missed opportunity when you're attending a game. You don't get to see that over and over again.
Yeah, you should be incentivizing people to go to games, right? And there's stuff that you get when you go to a game that you don't at home, right? Like we know that, but I just there's a small thing, but if you go to an NFL game, they'll show video of the teams coming out of the locker room, and that's something that it's kind of it's a private moment that they're showing in the stadium. That's something you don't get if you're watching on TV. Football's still a much better product, I think, in a lot of ways at home than it is in the stadium. But I think there's opportunities like that for baseball to really incentivize people buying a ticket and spending 3 hours of their night to go to a game. And that's one of them.
I just have one comment. I recently had an opportunity to sit down with Dayton Moore, and I told him one of the reasons I'm a big fan of the Royals is because my perception of the character and integrity that I see with the organization. That really makes a difference to me as a sports fan. Given the fact, number one, that he chose to hire you, and number two, that you chose to leave the Star, I'm going to pay a whole lot more attention to what you have to say in the future.
Oh, well, that's cool. I was hoping you weren't going to say, like, given the fact that he hired you, I now think differently of Dayton. I was hoping that wasn't
Just the
where
opposite.
you're going. Yeah, no, it was, it's, your perception is what I see as the truth, man. Like I had 15 years covering this team in one way or another, to get to know not just Dayton. I think we sometimes say his name is like shorthand to include like Scott Sharp, JJ Picola, Renee Francisco, Mike Matheny, Jim Wong, all these other guys that are just as solid and just as good as Dayton. Lonnie Goldberg. I mean, it could go on and on. They really are good people. And sometimes like people would tell you that's to a fault on the baseball field, that they care a little bit too much and maybe hold on to a guy too long. Some people would say that, but I would tell you that perception of what you think about Dayton is dead on. When I took this job, there was a million things that just I would not have done this, for any other team, any other city. But I told my wife, I said, look, these are, and I love the people at the Star. I really, Vahe is one of my dearest friends in the world, Blair Kirchhoff, Sam McDowell. But I said, these are either the best people I'm ever going to work with, or I am the worst reporter in the history of the world, to know these people for 15 years. So, obviously like what I thought has been confirmed. It's been great. And it really is it's a special place. It's a special group of people. I'm excited to sort of be part of it and see where I can help going forward.
Okay, just so everyone knows, it's 12:30. Do you want to take one more question, Sam?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Let's do it.
Anybody have one more question? I made them all quiet, didn't I?
I don't have a question, but I'll help wrap it up with Sam and say, Sam, thanks again. We appreciate you. We'd like to have you back in person. So we'll reach out when those things are available like that. We all wish you good luck. And I think you can tell by the questions, the amount of interest always in the Royals and always in that organization. And I agree, you're working for a tremendous organization. Thanks for taking your time with us today. We do appreciate you doing it. We'll have you back live sometime.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks for having me. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Sam. And I'll be in
Thank you.
Surprise in 3 weeks. So hopefully I'll be coming to the games. They'll be back up
Yeah.
and running. So
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah.
keep the weather
Absolutely.
nice. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. All right.
Please come for our 100th anniversary with the Fairfax Festival.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll
We'd
be
love to see you there.
in town for that. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, thanks everyone. And this was a nice virtual event. And I think everyone's getting spring fever talking about baseball and the Royals. And so we will see everyone. We'll be sending out the March luncheon and where it'll be located in a couple of weeks. So everyone go enjoy the beautiful weather. And since I sell ice melt, I'm still praying for some snow and ice to wrap up this season. So take care. Have a great day.
All right.